Hello, and welcome to the Human Design stream inside the Coherence Lab channel. I'm Christine. I'm a 5-1 sacral manifesting generator on the cross of refinement. And in human design terms, that means I'm a heretic. So in this space, I will always be encouraging you to drop your conditioning from the outside world and just embrace the youest you. We'll do that with breaking down the complexity of human design into simple, practical bits of knowledge for you to experiment with. And so in this Human Design in 5 series, I just pick a particular piece of the system and just give you my top 5 things that I feel like are worth paying attention to and possibly begin experimenting with. Today we're going to dive into the Emotional Solar Plexus Center in our body graph, so let's get started. Number 1, if your solar plexus is defined, you have emotional authority. So our authority is our inner guidance system. It's our embodied wisdom. And in the system, there are multiple kinds of authority, but emotional authority is probably the most common. And so if you have emotional authority, then probably the top thing for you to pay attention to is to slow down and learn to make decisions after giving yourself some time to feel through how you feel about things. Because you have an emotional wave. It has a natural peak and valley, natural peaks and valleys. And so you are constantly somewhere along that wave. And so it helps for you to know over time how you feel about something, to feel out the high and the low of it. If you can, bring awareness to this piece about slowing down, especially given that we live in a really fast-paced world, it can really help you to ground back into your own inner embodied wisdom in a way that can just make things flow more easily for you. If you're a practitioner, it can be really helpful to know if your client has emotional definition or not. And if they do, just helping them pay better, closer attention to their own emotions and their own rhythms of ups and downs to just help them kind of get out of their heads, which is where most humans are, and back into their bodies. Number 2, about half of the population is emotionally defined. And so that means half of the people in the world are transmitting their emotional energy, and the other half of us are receiving it and amplifying it and then reflecting it back. And so this cycle of emotional energy and how it works in the world is kind of an interesting insight into the collective. I feel like we can all see this emotional ping-ponging between us at both individual level and at the global level at this point. And so often it's non-emotional people, and non-emotional people are the people that have an undefined solar plexus. So often non-emotional people are the ones most labeled as sensitive or emotional, because these mechanics make it appear as if the non-emotional person is the source of the emotion. But they're not. What's happening is they are receiving emotion from defined some solar plexus centers, and they're amplifying that emotion and that feeling in their own body, and then they reflect it back out. And so they look to be the emotional person in the room when really they're just the barometer in some ways. So, there's too much about that mechanics to actually like dive into here, but I think even at the rudimentary level, you can get a sense of what that might be like and just bring some awareness to your own emotional hygiene. If you're an emotional transmitter with defined solar plexus, or if you're an emotional receiver with an undefined solar plexus. And as a practitioner, it can be really helpful to know, of course, this of your clients, but also it can just be really useful for your own knowledge about you. Are you an emotional being or not? And whether you are receiving or transmitting energy between you and your clients. Number 3, everyone is either a receiver or a transmitter of emotional energy. And this is true of all parts of our body graph. All of our centers are receiving or transmitting based on whether they're defined or undefined. But those in the solar plexus are specific to this emotionality. And so for 50% of the people, they are feeling 50% of the other side of the world's emotions, right? And so it can be really difficult to discern, if you're a non-emotional being, what's yours and what's not. Because of course, non-emotional beings have their own emotions and life experience as well. It's just they don't have an emotional wave and they aren't constantly generating emotion. And so this inability to discern what's ours and what's not can be really difficult, especially as children, right? So we just learn as non-emotional beings, we just kind of think it's all ours. And that's just how we end up walking through the world. And often, like I said earlier, other people think our emotion, that emotion is ours too. They don't see it as the reflection of themselves that it often is. And so this can be really overwhelming to us as children. If we feel this emotional thing that we don't know what to do with it, and we don't know when those moods are going to strike us because because they're not even ours, it can just be very disconcerting. And so just bringing awareness to these mechanics and just thinking through, like in your own past, like, does this resonate? Did this happen for you? And if you are non-emotional, another great practice is to just notice when you are feeling emotional and you're in aura with other people. An excellent practice is to just step outside, just walk away from the people that you're near, because that will allow that emotional energy to dissipate, right? And then if you maybe go for a walk or just be in your own aura by yourself somewhere for a little bit of time to let that energy exit your body, and then see how you feel and see what your own energy has to say. Same thing for clients, if you're a practitioner, just recognizing and helping your clients recognize which side of this emotional divide they're on can be really powerful. Number 4, after the heart center, the emotional solar plexus is the most heavily conditioned place in the body graph. And that just makes sense, right? Like when we think about our emotions, this is, of course, a very conditioning aspect of our lives. How we feel about things is specific to us, and how other people feel about things is specific to them. And often there's just a lot of miscommunication, and I think energetic misalignment that we just don't, we're just not really able to articulate sometimes. And so, our bodies are keenly aware of this, and we're all sensitive to this aspect of ourselves and others. And so the body's always gathering this information. And, as children, we were doing this too. And so we were always trying to feel safe in the world. And, if the room didn't feel safe, or if people felt, unusually emotional in ways that we didn't have a handle on, it keeps us in a space where we don't really know how to show up. And often what happens is, for kids, they just stop expressing themselves because it's better and it feels safer to just stay quiet and small, because often, again, they think they're the source of the problem. This is what children generally do. When the world outside is chaotic, they think that somehow they are at fault. And so this not speaking up, avoiding confrontation, and fear of upsetting others is very much the energy that lives in this emotional solar plexus area. And so just bringing awareness to these early wounds and just noticing when we are keeping ourselves small, or when we are being quiet when we should probably be more vocal, is just a really useful practice. And as a practitioner, it's really helpful to know whether your client has, a defined or undefined emotional center. Both are subject to conditioning, but the undefined solar plexus has fewer protections, from the impact of the emotionality of others. And so again, this conditioning we've talked about just gets in there and sticks in a way that's useful to. I just think, again, this is where human design, I think, can be really helpful in other practices, because it's just a map to, like, oh, this might be a place to look. This non-emotional spot, maybe a place where this person is just avoiding confrontation and truth. And number 5, here we go, the not self-talk of the solar plexus. It's all about avoiding confrontation and truth. You know, in human design, we talk about our mental and emotional and spiritual conditioning as the not self. And so not self behavior of the solar plexus, it just shows up as very self-policing. You know, we might feel unheard or overlooked or even abused, but we choose to stay quiet because the consequences of speaking up loom larger than the possible repercussions of speaking our truth. And so an undefined solar plexus can just get caught up in endless cycles of people pleasing instead of allowing the pleasure and joy and abundance in our own lives. And so it's okay for me to speak my truth. It's an excellent mantra for folks struggling with this not self in the solar plexus. And just bringing awareness to the, this unconscious inclination to stay small and to avoid, being in confrontational places and situations. It can help you practice setting your boundaries and just putting yourself first and stepping into your own power. And practitioners can help, clients recognize where they're avoiding these truths and either whether the truths are about themselves or others, and just support them in the hard work of really reprioritizing, our own happiness and wellness versus the happiness and wellness of others, which is often where we get caught up with this open and receiving solar plexus. So that's just a few things about the solar plexus. There's a ton more. Trust me, this solar plexus is a huge part of the human design system. But that's enough to get you started. And I would love for you to share any questions you might have. And for sure, please leave comments. And if you would like and subscribe to the Coherence Lab and share the Coherence Lab experiment with others, that would be awesome.